Welcome to Round Hill Radio, the podcast from Round Hill Community Church. Through our conversations, we discover the holy in the ordinary, find moments of grace and peace, and redefine what we're talking about when we talk about faith. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Leslie.
I timed that one really well.
Beautifully.
Thank you.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. That pleases me. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So this is the last in our series of Christmas carols episodes, which is so much fun.
It's wonderful.
I always really enjoy these.
Love the background.
I love the background. Yeah, I guess it sort of enriches the experience, if you will.
It does.
Of singing them. And we have a couple, have we sung either of these yet? You would think I would know this, but I don't think we have yet.
I think not. No,
I know. So there we go. So we'll have two that we haven't had the chance to sing yet. So that's exciting too. So we're going to talk today about We Three Kings and What Child Is This?
What child is this?
What child is this? Which is set to the tune Greensleeves, which our beloved author has described as
wow,
the saddest.
Sad.
It's a very sad tune, which I have to say, I don't know that you and I were saying, we don't know that we really thought.
No,
it was sad.
Maybe I wouldn't call it, the sweetest tune that I've ever, but I like the tune. It's Greensleeves.
It feels more melancholy.
Maybe
it's
that's
very
it.
Melancholy.
Yeah.
There's lots of there's longing.
Yeah.
I always picture like a Renaissance guy with like a lute.
Yes.
Like strumming outside some maiden's window. Which,
Singing a melancholy song.
It's like,
not really a love song.
Right. It's like the Renaissance version of like a dude outside a window with a boombox.
Right.
Some traditions never die.
Yep.
Well, that's what they say the tune was. It was the lore is that it was written by Henry VIII for Anne Boleyn.
Right.
I don't know how much time he spent writing music. He's not, from my limited knowledge, I don't believe he was known as a composer. So I'm wondering if there was a court composer who was like, here, under the table. Here you go. Here you go. I got you a song.
Probably.
But from that time period, Yeah. So
I think it's interesting that the person providing this background says that, we're not exactly sure if it was composed by him, but we do know that Henry's daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, danced to the tune.
And
I would have been interesting to have seen that dance.
But quite a dance.
To Greensleeves.
Yes.
Slow and melancholy, I guess.
I loved all that history of dance as like communication, and everyone knew the dances, and it was this whole thing. That whole culture, I think, is fascinating to me. The college I went to, our sister school was Case Western Reserve University, which was very well known for their early music program.
Okay.
And within the early music program, one of the professors also taught, I think it was like I don't know if it was an actual class, but it was like one of those like clubs or whatever. And it was early dance.
Oh my gosh.
So they would stage these early operas and there would be like dance.
Beautiful.
And it was so cool. And how like everything was like very, it was shaped by the clothes they were wearing. Someone had these big dresses. And so you just do lots of like bobbing. Right. It was like you like stand on one foot and kind of like bend down and like all these sort of different movements that were very elegant.
You didn't want to topple over.
You're not going to topple over. They were not. I mean, some of them were energetic, but it was a lot of like footwork. Yeah. And that was kind of it.
Yeah.
As an organist, I particularly enjoyed that.
Well, I do think about this culture. These, some of these originate from England, and there's such a tradition of village dancing.
Yeah, right.
People getting together to celebrate. And I think that because times were hard and really rough, dancing, making music was one of the pleasures.
Yeah.
And of course, some of those, some of these songs that we've heard, these carols, they have they have vibrant tunes, and some of them are a little more melancholy. So this is one that's along those lines.
Yeah. What I think is interesting is in Christmas carols, we have way more instances of a refrain. Because once you start getting into the more like Victorian, Edwardian, hymns. I've been watching a lot of British documentaries over the past 3 days.
Good. Bring it.
Lucy Worsley is amazing, by the way. Anyways,
Okay.
just said. But you get into the sort of these, you get into this very like metered, everything straight, lots of quarter notes, and
Okay.
you sing the whole thing through, right? You
Yes.
sing one verse, whole verse,
All the
you
way
sing the
through.
second verse. And the Christmas carols are fun because you have the verses, right? And intermixed, you have refrains, which are mostly the same every time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get to We Three Kings, that's the structure of it's actually a little bit different how they deal with the refrain.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's interesting, because we list when we do our bulletins or order of service, order of worship, whatever you want to call it, we put in the text when,
Yes.
when the choir sings something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been noticing over the past 4 weeks how many more pieces have refrains than have I see throughout the entire year, basically, not even Easter.
Right.
So it's sort of interesting, you get what you get in a refrain is repetitive text.
Right.
You're going to repeat the tune all the time when you sing a hymn because it's strophic. You sing the same thing every time.
Yep.
But you get this repeated text, much like a pop song, right? You get the chorus, chorus, refrain, same thing.
I hadn't even thought about this until you've mentioned it.
But if you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, there's a lot of songs with refrains.
Yeah.
At Christmas time.
And so it becomes something it's added emphasis. You're repeating it over and over again, giving yourself more time to think about it.
And there's also something, I think you were talking about sort of like, country dances kind of a thing. Like there's something, casual isn't the right word, but there's something sort of the everyman, if you will, like it was the pop song.
Right.
Of Tudor England.
Right.
That was the great hit that year.
Yep.
All the kids were like, hey, have you heard Greensleeves?
Yeah.
It's really cool. Our parents just don't understand, but it's really cool. Right. Like I said, some things never change.
Yep.
But it's so interesting. I love that sort of stuff. Sort of look at it.
Well, since you're raising that and I'm looking at the text for it. So the thing that strikes me about this carol is that there's a whole sense of wonderment about it. It starts off, what child is this who laid to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping? It sort of unfolds from this situation that this person isn't really sure.
Yeah.
Right. And then the refrain, however, says this is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. So you get the answer of the refrain.
Yeah.
But it's as if it keeps coming back to the question, and then it says, well, why lies he in such mean estate?
Right.
Right. And so again, well, it's Christ. And there's a lot of theology packed into that. But I love your comment about the refrain and paying attention to that, because it's as if it's point counterpoint a little bit.
It's almost a dialogue.
Yeah.
Some guy's asking like, what's happening?
Right.
And another guy, perhaps an angel. Angels always have the answers at Christmas time.
Sort
it's going, this is Christ the King. And then he's like, there's more questions. It's like, oh, this is Christ the King. Right. And then finally by the third
verse. How many times do I have to tell you?
Exactly. So I'm assuming this is all the verses, but one never knows.
Right.
So by the third verse, our questioner finally gets it so bring him gifts.
Yes. That's right.
Yes. That sounds like a good idea. We should bring him some stuff.
Yeah. And there's finally the invitation, right? Let loving hearts enthrone him.
Yeah.
Right. So there's engagement.
Yeah.
Right. We all get drawn in.
Yeah. He finally gets it through
I love it.
I've never thought about it this way. I love this. This is great.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. And you were looping back a little bit. You were talking about, our hymn story author saying that this is, the first sentence in this wonderful hymn story, he writes, feelings of sadness come over me whenever I hear this deeply moving carol. And I have to say that for me, I was like, well, that doesn't, I think more melancholy. But what do I think of as a sort of a sad carol? And ironically, in our hymnal, I'm holding it up for our video viewers, the one right next door is more sad to me, which is I Wonder as I Wander, which we actually heard a beautiful setting of in worship yesterday from our brass quintet group, which was that arrangement was actually done by one of their group members. That was a new arrangement that she had done. It was fantastic. I also want to give a shout out that was an all women brass quartet group and brass quintet, and a lot of our friends were like, "That was so cool." I was like, "They're pretty great."
Yeah, they were
They're
fantastic.
fantastic. So it's so I always think of as I wander, but my reference with I wonder as I wander, I'm bringing a third carol just because why not? It's the last one. We'll have all the carols. Is all I can picture is I grew up watching the video specials of Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Oh, fantastic.
And they did Christmas specials all the time.
Oh.
I think I watched the same one every year for many, many years. And she and Mary did a stunning version of it that was like heartbreakingly beautiful.
Wow.
You know, so that's all I can think of is Mary from Peter, Paul, and Mary singing I Wonder as I Wander.
Isn't it great to have, I think we all bring these connections.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a person like that, or it's a concert, or it's a place.
Mm-hmm. I gotta go find that video. I gotta watch that again. That would be so much fun.
Do it.
I should. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Everything's
we need to do
on YouTube.
whatever we can.
Right.
Right? This season.
Oh yeah.
Make it special.
For sure. I mean, everything's on YouTube. If we're on YouTube, everything's on YouTube, friends.
Right here with us.
So should we pivot to the next one? Oh, but no, I wanted to bring up something about the author of the text. So we were talking about Greensleeves, and then which is the tune that What Child Is This is set to. And then the author of the hymn, again, hymn is the text, of What Child Is This, a guy named William Dix, D-I-X. And I was thinking to myself, I know that name from something because that name is also a hymn tune. Oh,
yes. Uh-huh.
Which is often set to his other hymn, which is also, you know what I mean, is his other hymn, As With Gladness Men of Old, which we also sing as For the Beauty of the Earth. So that's hymn tune Dix, D-I-X.
Fascinating.
Because I was like, I wonder if that's the same tune, the same name. So it's named after him. So congratulations, you got a hymn tune. So I kind of wonder if you go down that road a little bit, how interesting that would be.
Yeah. Well, this, he was a fascinating character in and of himself. I loved reading about this. His father was a surgeon who wanted his son to follow his footsteps, but having no interest in medicine, William left Bristol Grammar School, moved to Glasgow, and sold insurance and became a hymn writer on the side.
I like it.
And you know that I'd have to go back through the others that we've talked about, but it seems like that's not uncommon. Like they're not all musicians, right? Professional musicians. They often did other things. They had musical background in some cases.
Well, some of them even didn't. Their hymn tunes were poems that became set by musicians later.
So it's a fascinating story sometimes to see, first of all, how was it written, but also the journey for the hymn and the tune to finally meet up with one another. Right. Somebody often introduces them on a blind date.
Right.
And they are together forever.
Like, all these fit. Yeah. Like how those end up being together. Yeah. I wonder what the composer of Greensleeves, who's probably not Henry VIII, thought about. Would think about, wait, this is a Christmas carol?
Yeah, this is not what I intended.
This is not really what I meant.
This is from a romantic love poetry.
Yeah, how dare you make this sacred?
And I guess wasn't that kind of true for Martin Luther, who also borrowed from secular, I think, songs. Right. And then used new texts to add to the tune. So
I feel like we should take a Taylor Swift song and make it something sacred now, and just to continue the long historical tradition.
That'll be a Christmas project for me after.
You've got time. You've got nothing else going on, right? You're just a pastor at Christmas.
Oh, my heavens.
Yeah, you're not busy at all.
Fascinating.
So our other hymn for the day, or a third one, we'll see how many I can throw in today.
Weave in.
Is We Three Kings of Orient Are.
Love it.
Which is great. I always wonder, here's a question for you. Is this a Christmas hymn or is this an epiphany?
Well, I think of it as Epiphany.
Yeah.
You know, that it's really focused on the interaction between the Magi and the child and family. Yeah. So I think it is.
We'll always tell the people who did our hymnal because it's in the Epiphany section.
It is in the Epiphany section.
I was going to say.
They're good. And of course, right next to it in our hymnal is that beautiful hymn, carol.
As with Gladness.
As with us, to the tune Dix, right there.
Dix. Yeah.
Words.
It's so good. Although they have a different translation. Oh, they have a different version. Instead of as with gladness, men of old, as with gladness, sages bold, which is part of that kind of inclusive language thing. But sages is one of the better ways that people have changed that.
I like that word, actually.
Sages.
Right?
Sages.
The wise. It still connects something with wisdom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you don't lose the meaning.
Tradition. I've always been struck by We Three Kings of Orient Are. I've talked with people over the years. It seems like there can be very divided feelings about this. Some people just really love it, and some people just say, I can't abide that carol. And
really?
I think, it's funny. And I think more, it's because in some ways of its length, it's a very involved. It's almost like you're singing a story.
Yes, which becomes problematic if you happen, this is a very specific example, if you happen to be a music director during COVID times where we're not singing all the verses of all the hymns, but you still want to see We Three Kings and you don't know what verses to sing.
It's a tough one.
That was a tricky arrangement.
Are you going to choose gold, frankincense, or myrrh?
Or myrrh,
right?
The middle, I think I went for 1 and 5.
Yeah, 1 and 5 is safe. Well, that's another case where actually you are safe with 1 and 5 because it's as if the first one really just introduces it.
Yeah.
And then there's a theological statement, right? Glorious now, behold him arise, Christ and God and sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right? Very interesting. Alleluia, alleluia, sounds through the earth and skies. So it's interesting to note, and I saw it in the one that we were talking about earlier, What Child Is This? That there's this little introduction from time to time of sacrifice, of death, and that's where the mournful quality comes.
Right.
And it's there in the Christmas story too, because Mary is essentially told, this is going to be, your heart is going to be broken through this process. You're going to watch this man grow up and this little baby grow up into the fullness of humanity, but it's not going to end well.
Right.
And I noticed that these hymn writers just try to insert that reality here and there.
There's a lot of parallels musically that we get through different anthems of Easter and Christmas. Actually, hilariously, the introit the soloist sang yesterday, which was called Chanticleer's Carol, said anthem for Easter and Christmas.
Isn't that interesting?
And the text absolutely works for both.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is joyous and redemptive, and it's funny how much, it makes sense, but it's got that sort of cyclical infinitum kind of thing happening. Funny story about We Three Kings, it is in the same key as What Child Is This?
Oh.
Also E minor.
Also tending towards.
Also tending towards darkness, apparently. Right. But so the funny thing, we're talking about the refrain. So this one, the instructions in this hymnal at least, are that you do the refrain only after verses 1 and 5. So they want you to get through.
You're right. Yeah.
So the middle 3 verses, if you're not sitting there looking at your hymnal while you're listening to our podcast, it's number 172, by the way. Because verses 2, 3, and 4 take you through gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Each gift gets its own verse. And so the hymn writer did not want you to have to sit through a refrain after every single one. I appreciate that.
That was merciful.
Thanks, John Hopkins Jr.
Yeah.
That was really nice. So there's a funny connection between this hymn and 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Oh, okay. So, so the gentleman, Clement Clark Moore, who has many extra E's in his name, was a land developer who also wrote 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. And he made a fair bit of money from that. And the Episcopalians of New York were looking to start a seminary, and which would become General Theological Seminary. And he offered them a portion of his quiet country estate, quote, a quiet rural retreat on the picturesque banks of the Hudson. And where is General actually located for our modern friends?
It's way downtown.
It's like 20th Street.
Yeah, it's
low. They're like, oh, it's the undeveloped northern regions of Manhattan.
There was a lot farther north and 1812 or
in
whenever.
1857. And this is like, this was after New York had been our capital for a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything had moved, and this was still uptown.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to rethink about when in Hamilton when the Hamiltons moved uptown. I'm like, where uptown did they go?
Yeah.
Wall Street? Like,
right.
like how far did they go? I'm gonna have to think about that and find it out. A quick Wikipedia, I'm sure, will give me the information.
Yeah.
But so they started General, and then so the composer and author. So this is a author composer who wrote this hymn. So he wrote both the text and the tune to go together. Mm-hmm. He went to General Theological Seminary and actually became mm-hmm. And then he became their first instructor of church music.
Yeah, isn't that? And here's another person who started out as a reporter.
Yeah,
right. Did his initial work at University of Vermont and then moved to New York to pursue legal studies, but wound up going to General.
That's so fun. I love the.
And one thing I did not know about this, that he wrote We Three Kings as part of a Christmas pageant produced by the seminary in 1857. I would love to. It probably wasn't the best Christmas pageant ever, since we've got the monopoly on that. But and then in 1863, it was published in his carols, hymns, and songs. I think that's fascinating. There was one thing I wanted to make sure to say, because I'm actually just noticing it now. But in the refrain to this, I love this language. So it says, "O star of wonder, star of light, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding." It's like the journey never ends.
Yeah.
Right. Guide us to thy perfect light.
Oh.
It's not really a reference, I think, to the manger. It's really a reference to a vision of a world of perfect light.
It's active.
Peace.
It's present. It's not past tense.
Still happening.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, it would be very interesting to see how a congregation would react if we sung this on Easter morning. Because this fourth stanza, "Myrrh is mine, its bitter perfume breathes a life of gathering gloom." Now, this is tough stuff to sing at Christmas Eve, by the way.
Yeah.
But there it is.
Yeah. "Sorrowing,
sighing, bleeding, dying, sealed in the stone-cold tomb." It's all there. It's Good Friday.
It is.
Right? It's only then in the last stanza, "Glorious now, behold him arise." It's the resurrection.
Right.
So, I wonder... In our, how many times have we sung this over the many
years,
right? Yeah. It's got that strong reference to Good Friday and Easter. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see how people pick that up or not.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to look at, and maybe do like a little Christmas in April or something.
Yeah, right.
That'd be fun.
And it may be that if people have a little aversion to this, maybe it's that, they don't want that part inserted in Christmas festivities.
We want our twinkle lights and candlelight and gingerbread, and please leave the sorrow out of it. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Which I fully understand. And
yes.
I am one of those people, I fully understand.
I think especially this year, it's... Yeah.
There aren't enough twinkle lights in the world right now.
No, right.
But I'm trying my best.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's so good. No, but it's, and I wonder how many, if you look through, through our hymnal, how many are there, So, we have enjoyed many conversations of Christmas carols over the past couple of years. If you guys have any that you'd like us to talk about, or any hymns, we don't have to do just air quote, Christmas carols. If you have any hymns that you guys want us to delve into, you can send us an email at podcast@roundhillcommunitychurch.org. And as a reminder, we will take a quick 2-week break. You won't even notice we're gone. It'll fly by. And if you really miss us, you can always listen to our previous episodes, catch up on any. Mm-hmm. We've done a great one recently on our Afghani evacuee project. We've had some really great guests on. Mm-hmm. So this was episode 101.
Keep going. Still proceeding.
But who's cast? Guide us to thy perfect light, folks. So
Indeed.
thank you all for joining us here on
Yes,
Round
indeed.
Hill Radio.
Happy Christmas.
Round Hill Radio is brought to you by the friends and members of Round Hill Community Church.